The Rules and Regulations of Debating in Islam Part 2. Principle 5. Impartial search for the truth, avoiding prejudice and observing the accepted ethics of debate. What ensures a straightforward and fruitful debate is a resolute search for the truth, not allowing one's own desires or public opinion to influence the one. A sensible person, Muslim or non-Muslim, is expected to sincerely seek the truth and avoid errors. Most of well-known Muslim scholars were very careful in this regard. Abu Hamd al-Ghazali says in this connection, cooperation in seeking the truth is inherent to religion, but sincerity in the pursuit of it can be distinguished by certain conditions and signs. A diligent seeker of the truth may be compared to one who is looking for his lost camel. It would be immaterial for him if he or another person should be the one to find it. Likewise, a sincere truth seeker would perceive his partner as a helper rather than an adversary, and would be grateful to him if he guided him to the truth. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, for instance, used to say, "I never spoke to someone but sincerely wished that Allah would keep him well, protect him from sin and misdeed, and guide him. And I never debated with someone but sincerely wished that we would arrive at the truth, regardless as to whether it is first discovered by him or me." In another place, Volume 1 of Al-Ihya, al-Ghazali says, "Over-enthusiasm is one of the signs of a corrupted scholar, even if the case they defend is true. By showing excessive enthusiasm for the truth, and their showing contempt for their opponents, the latter would be stimulated to retaliate and react in the same manner. They would be driven to stand for falsehood and so justify the label attributed to them. If the champions of truth had spoken kindly to them, avoiding publicity and humiliation, they would have succeeded in winning them over. But as it is, a person who enjoys a place of prestige is strongly inclined to preserve his position by attracting followers, and the only way to that is to boast, attack or curse adversaries. To conclude, a debate must be conducted fairly and calmly, without showing any excitement or roughness, and without compromising the chances of arriving at the truth. Debaters should avoid spiteful argumentation and wordplay, as such behavior would poison the atmosphere, arouse hostile attitudes and may well end in deadlock. This point will be expanded, at a later stage, by Allah's grace. Principle 6. Qualification of the debater. It is a fact that a possessor of a right should not be deprived from his right. It is also a fact that this right should not be given to anyone who does not deserve it. Moreover, this right does not entitle everyone to say anything he likes. It is not right for boundaries of his knowledge. It is not right for him to try to defend the truth when he is ignorant of it. It is not right for him to stand up for the truth when he is unable to defend it. Nor is it right for one to try to defend the truth when one is ignorant of the manifestations of falsehood. So, for a debate to run smoothly and to be fruitful, it is necessary for the participants to be sufficiently qualified for it. To be qualified for a debate, a participant should have the right knowledge, i.e., specialized knowledge. A layman is not equal to a specialist, and, so, the former may not argue with the latter regarding issues that fall within his field. We may learn a lesson from Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, who, as the Holy Quran relates, told his father, "O my father, verily there has come to me of the knowledge that which came not unto you. So follow me, I will guide you to the straight path." 1943. It is unfortunate when a layman tries to contradict a specialist. It is better for him to have the modesty to come as a learner rather than find fault with a more knowledgeable person, without justification. One may learn a lesson from Prophet Moses, who, as we recite in the Quran, said in modesty to the good servant of Allah, "May I follow you, so that you teach me something of that knowledge, guidance and true path, which you have been taught, by Allah?" 1866. Many debates fail because of the lack of equality between debaters. To quote Al-Imam al-Shafi'i again, who says, "I have never debated with a knowledgeable person, but to have beaten him, and I have never debated with an ignorant person, but to have been beaten by him." Al-Shafi'i is here saying, in humorous turn of speech, that it is in vain that unequal persons should debate. Principle 7. Decisiveness and relativity of conclusions. It is important to realize here that human opinions and ideas are not absolute. Only prophets are infallible in what they attribute to Almighty Allah. The following aphorism, common among Muslim scholars, is useful in this connection: "My viewpoint is right, but could be wrong, and my adversary's viewpoint is wrong, but could be right." Hence, it is not a prerequisite for a successful debate that either party should accept the other party's opinion. Should it happen that both parties agree on one opinion, this would be excellent. But if they do not, the debate will still be successful, as long as each party realizes that the other party is justified in adhering to his view, so that these views should therefore be tolerated. In his Al-Mughni bin Qudama, may Allah have mercy on him, reports in this regard, some scholars used to excuse anyone who disagreed with them in debatable matters, and did not insist that he should accept their views. The end of Mughni's speech. A debate would, however, be a failure if it resulted in discord, hostility, or accusations of ill will and ignorance. Principle 8. Acceptance of and being satisfied with conclusions agreed upon by the debaters and all that this entails. This means that the parties should take the conclusions seriously. If this principle is not realized, then the whole purpose of debate will be in vain. Bin Akil says, in this connection, let each one of the debaters accept the statements O for the other party, supported by proof. By doing this, he will demonstrate his nobility and self-respect, and he will prove himself to be an acceptor of the truth. Again, from Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, may Allah be pleased with him, I never debate with someone who accepts my proof, but I hold him in high esteem. And I never debate with someone who refuses my proof, but I lose all esteem for him. The Science of Polemics, p. 14. The rules of good conduct in debating. The etiquette of debating. Using only decent language and avoiding a challenging or overwhelming style. One of the first characteristics of speech: a debater should have his politeness of speech, especially during debates. Some verses from the Holy Quran will drive this idea home. And say to my slaves, i.e. the true believers of Islamic monotheism, that they should only say those words that are the best. 17:53. And argue with them in a way that is better. 16,125. And speak good to people, i.e. enjoin righteousness and forbid evil, and say the truth about Muhammad. 2:83. It follows that a sensible person who speaks the truth should disdain from such unbecoming methods as slander, ridicule, mockery, contempt, and irritation. It is interesting in this regard to notice how divine guidance, as we see in the Quran, directs Prophet Muhammad not to scold the non-believers. And if they argue you, as regards the slaughtering of the sacrifices, say Allah knows best of what you do, Allah will judge between you on the day of resurrection about wherein you used to differ. 22, 68 and 69. And say to them, and verily, either we or you are rightly guided or in plain error. 34, 24, that was despite their clear misguidance. A debater is recommended to avoid defying his opponent in order to overwhelm or embarrass him, even when his own evidence is decisive. To win someone's favor is better than to win a round against him. You may silence an opponent without winning his consent or acceptance. Intellectual proofs may be compelling, even without winning the goodwill of the other party. However, a sensible person should realize that it is more important to win people's heart than to push them into the corner. Also, raising one's voice and using strong language will only lead to malice and vexation. Therefore, a debater should avoid raising his voice, which only shows indiscretion and provokes the other party. Shouting will not prove one's point. On the contrary, it is mostly a mark of lack of evidence, compensating for the weakness of one's evidence with noise. In contrast, a calm voice is usually indicative of a person's good reasoning and balance. It reflects an organized mind, with confidence and objectivity. We must add, however, that a speaker will need to change his intonation in accordance with the progression of the discussion. It could be inquisitive, matter-of-fact, deprecating, or exclamatory. Such variation wards off boredom and helps in delivering the message effectively. Besides, there are certain situations which may call for overwhelming and silencing of an opponent if the latter becomes too unreasonable or impervious to sensible argument. It is in reference to this that the Quran says, "And argue not with the people of the Scripture, Jews and Christians, unless it be in a way that is better, with good words and in good manner," inviting them to Islamic monotheism with his verses, except with such of them as do wrong. 29:46. In another verse, Allah does not like that the evil should be uttered in public except by him who has been wronged. 4:148. So, it is in such exceptional cases, where there is a glaring transgression, that forceful attack is permissible. Embarrassing an adversary in this case becomes a shaming of falsehood and folly. Before we conclude this section, we would like to mention the advisability of avoiding the repetition of first-person pronouns, singular or plural, when debating. The use of expressions like, in my opinion, in our experience, seems pedantic and egoistic to a listener and might also be indicative of one's self-praise and having mixed intentions. Therefore, it would be more tactful to replace such expressions with, examination would reveal, experts have discovered, and the like. It is also important, in a really good debate, not to be too laconic, assuming that the other party is very intelligent, nor too long-winded, assuming that the other party is stupid. A mean should be struck between the two extremes. People are quite varied in their intellectual ability and level of understanding. Some are broad-minded, some prefer caution and a safe course, others are much more tolerant and easygoing. Such differences will be reflected in the way people perceive a speaker's statements. Some will understand denotation, allusion, and intention, but most fall far short of that. Abiding by a specified time. It must be firmly established, in the debater's mind, not to expatiate upon a topic or monopolize talk beyond the requirements of tactfulness and polite social behavior. In his The Art of Polemics, bin Akil writes, let both parties take turns voluntarily, not forcibly, each allowing the other party to say all he wants to say before he speaks. Let a debater not interrupt the other, even when he can guess what the other wants to say from hearing part of his statement. Some people do that to call attention to their quick-mindedness and intelligence. Such people should not be too complacent, as their guess does not prove that they can disclose the unseen. It is merely that ideas lead to each other by association. The Science of Polemics, p. 13. To determine whether a speaker has been too long-winded or moderate depends on the specific circumstances. In a symposium or conference, the chairman allots to every speaker a specific time, so he should abide by his given time. The situation is more relaxed at camps and trips, as listeners have more spare time. Similarly, the situation in a mosque might be different from a university or other educational institution. Now let us summarize the main causes of being long-winded and interruption of others, which are 1. Arrogance. 2. Love of status and praise. 3. Believing that what one knows is unknown to others. 4. Being careless of all people's knowledge, time, and circumstances. A speaker who possesses any of the above qualities could cause the audience to become bored with him, wishing his talk to end quickly. It is commonly known that a listener's capacity for listening and paying attention is limited, and so, if a speaker goes beyond that limit, a listener will become bored and distracted. Some experts have estimated that time to be 15 minutes. However, a speaker should try to conclude his talk while people are enjoying what he says, rather than waiting until they hope for a conclusion of his volubility. Attentive listening and avoiding interruption. Just as abiding by a specific time for talking is important, it is equally important to listen, politely and attentively, to the other speaker until he has finished his statement. It would be a mistake to concentrate on what you are going to say without paying attention to his statement. In this regard, there is some advice given by Al-Hasan, son of Ali, to his son, may Allah be pleased with them, if you sit with scholars, my son, be more interested in listening than in speaking. Learn good listening just as you learn good speaking. Never interrupt a speaker, even if he speaks for long, until his speech comes to an end. There is also a relevant statement by bin al-Mukaffa, learn good listening just as you learn good speaking. To be a good listener you should give a speaker time until he concludes, so as not to appear too anxious in reply. Direct your face and gaze at the speaker, and try to understand what he says. The popular expression, a conversation with a deaf person, describes the situation when each party is concentrating on his own utterance without listening to what the other has to say. Although they are supposed to be conducting a dialogue. Good listening provides a firm basis for the exchange of ideas while pinpointing issues of disagreement. By listening attentively, a debater is sure to receive respect, for it results in a feeling of relaxation, appreciation, and earnestness. All this paves the way to achieving the desired result. Respecting an adversary. It is essential during a debate that participants respect each other and recognize each other's position and status. The right titles and polite forms of address should be maintained. Having mutual respect for one another helps one accept and offset any self-defense and selfishness. On the other hand, it is disgraceful and hence prohibited to despise other people. By this, we do not mean that one should hesitate to advise and correct mistakes, but only that this should be done decently and respectfully. Respect and appreciation are quite different from flattery and hypocrisy. To complete this point, we add that a debater should direct his attention to the matter in hand, discussing, analyzing, criticizing, providing evidence and refuting. He should not discuss the personality of his adversary. Otherwise, the meeting would turn into a verbal duel, with all bare slander and insult. This would not show devotion to the discussion of issues and ideas, but only to the discussion of personalities, qualifications, and behavior. Confining debates to a specified place. Muslim scholars have pointed out that debates and disputes should be private, attended only by selected individuals. This, they say, is more conducive to intensive thinking, clarity of minds, and honest intentions. In contrast, a large audience is more conducive to pomposity and aggressiveness even when defending a false case. The following verse from the Holy Quran has been quoted in support of the above guidance. Say to them, O Muhammad, I exhort you to one thing only, that you stand up for Allah's sake in pairs and singly, and reflect within yourselves the life history of the Prophet. 34:46. When a large number of people meet, in a crowd or a mob, the effect is to blur rational or clear thinking. Usually, the majority of a crowd would not be well informed, hence, this would more likely create a demagogic atmosphere in which the crowd would take any side blindly. On the other hand, a few knowledgeable persons would focus much more effectively. Besides, it would be easier for a person in error to accept correction, while he may be very unwilling to concede to an error in the presence of a large audience. It is with such considerations that the above verse ordered Prophet Muhammad to call the disbelievers to give up their demagogic ways and discuss matters in the frame of small groups. We may refer to an incident from the period just after the advent of Islam that may shed light on the situation under discussion. Biographers of the Prophet relate that 3 of the Qurayshite disbelievers, Abu Sufyan bin Harb, Abu Jahl bin Hisham and Al-Aqnas bin Shurayq bin Amr al-Thaqafi, emerged separately from their homes one night to listen to the Messenger of Allah recite some verses from the Quran. They sat in the dark around the Messenger's home, yet none of them was aware of the presence of the other 2. They remained stationed there, listening until dawn. But on their way back they met each other and blamed each other. Someone said, should a commoner see you, he would become suspicious, so we should never do this again. The following night, however, each one stationed himself as he had done the previous night, and listened to the Prophet reciting until dawn. Again, they met on their way back, and they repeated what they had said the night before. The same thing happened at the 3rd night, but this time they pledged never to return again. In the morning, Al-Aqnas bin Shurayq took his staff and went to Abu Sufyan's house to speak to him. What do you think, father of Hanzala? A traditional way of calling a man as the father of his eldest son, indicating respect. He said, of what you heard from Muhammad? By Allah, father of Thalaba. He replied, I have heard things that sound familiar which I can understand, and have also heard things that sound unfamiliar which I cannot understand. It has been the same for me, by Allah. Al-Aqnas rejoined. Then he left Abu Sufyan and went to Abu Jahl's home. On meeting him he asked, what do you think, Father O al-Hakam, of what you heard from Muhammad? What I heard, replied Abu Jahl, we have competed with the clan of Abdu Munaf in all matters. They have been hospitable and we have been hospitable, they have provided transport animals and we have provided transport animals, they have been giving freely and we have been giving freely. But now, at the time we are with them, neck to neck, there rises a man from among them who they say is a prophet on whom descends revelation from heaven. How could we beat them at that? By Allah, we shall never believe in him. So, Al-Aqnas arose and walked away. Ikhlas, sincerity, to Allah's cause. The quality of ikhlas is complementary to the one mentioned above, concerning the impartial search for the truth. A debater must train himself to seek nothing, during a debate, but Allah's pleasure. The most prominent manifestation of lack of sincerity, ikhlas, is to be motivated by pomposity, pedantry, and overshadowing peers. To seek praise and admiration from others is a base drive that a debater should avoid. To instill the right intention, one should ask oneself the following questions. Is there any personal advantage that may come to one as a result of this participation? Does one aim at achieving a great reputation or simply gratifying one's desire to speak? Does one wish to see disharmony and discord take place? To achieve real profit, one should be aware of the beguiling of the devil, seeking nothing but Allah's pleasure. In thinking that one is standing for the truth while one really seeks exhibitionism and gratifying one's desires. One criterion that shows the honesty of one's intentions is to be satisfied and pleased if the other party should be the one to find the truth. One should really encourage the other person, should he be in the right. That is because truth is not the property of any group or individual. An honest person's objective is to see the truth prevail everywhere, no matter from what source it comes or who expresses it. One obvious mistake in this regard is to think that none but you loves the truth or defend it. It would be admirable for one to stop the discussion if one perceives that one no longer speaks from a desire to find the truth, but rather has selfish motives, such as obstinacy and aggressiveness. This is the little that can be presented, by His grace. May Allah guide us, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon Muhammad, his kith and kin.